And welcome. It's Wednesday. It's another night to do a good conversation about being a landlord in Alberta. It is the Alberta Landlord Shoptalk show. Alongside my host, Chris Noble.
Good day.
Good day. I'm MacKenzie Wilson. We're happy to be here. We got a really fun show tonight talking about evictions, but more so the different legal systems, the nuances, what's going on in the current process as of now. Things have changed a bit with COVID. So what more of a timely conversation to have? I've got two great guests with us tonight. We have got Rob Bowe, our eviction specialist out of Central Alberta, and also a regular occurrence, our pseudo co-host, Bill Biko, when Chris is on assignment. He's also with us tonight. So, Chris, let's have a fun time tonight. You ready for the show?
Oh, I'm excited about the show. You know what I'm just going to say? I'm really excited. You and I had a great conversation today. There are so many things happening behind the scenes. And it's like, I'm just busting to want to tell everybody, but I don't want to spill the beans. But you know what? If you're a member of this page, please stay tuned as the weeks go on here, because we just made another contact with a service provider today who is eager to jump on board and provide our group specific services. And you know, it's just exciting to see how this has evolved. MacKenzie, since you and I have connected, the quality of partnerships that we're bringing to this group is absolutely amazing.
We're learning so much, and we're having such a fun time. I'm going to get two guests on the show, get them warmed up as we get tuned up, and we have a bonus left over from last week that we never did a raffle on. So I thought maybe we'll do that tonight.
Excellent.
Bill Biko, Rob, how are you gentlemen doing tonight?
Doing good tonight, thanks.
Perfect. Awesome. So I'm going to get you guys to tell me some random numbers. Last week, we had the Landlord Credit Bureau, the CEO, Zach, on. His partner in crime did not make it out. That was Marv. He had a motorcycle breakdown and couldn't get back to the computer in time. That's okay. Zach carried the shoulder load. We learned a lot about that bureau and how we can report credit or monthly rental payments to Equifax as a landlord. So there's a lot of powerful things on that show, as well as probably the most requested feature everyone wants is a legal, completely legal bad tenant list. So we were giving away one fee premium membership. I went down today and made a detail list. There you go. Of the 21 folks that tuned into both the live show as well as the watch party that Chris pulled up. And I want you guys, all four of you, to grab four numbers. And then, well, actually, I'll do it this way. So, Bill, pick a number between 1 and 21.
13.
13.
Okay.
Robert, your name's messing me up because I used to call you Rob. Rob, pick a number between 13 and 21.
Lucky number 7.
Times by 2.
You said 13 to 21?
I did.
Oh, go with 21.
Okay, 21. Well, then you kind of messed my formula. I was going to give Chris a final say, but we'll go with number 21. Oh, hopefully I don't butcher her last name. Heather I didn't even write, my printing's horrible. BARTZAS. Heather, I'm going to message you tonight. I'll get you in contact. You just got a free premium membership at the Landlord Credit Bureau, a $240 value. Thanks for tuning in last week. Cool. Thanks for doing that, guys.
Is that Bartaz?
Bartaz, thank you. Bartaz, yes. Heather Bartaz, you're the winner. Celebrate. Give a high five. Like the show. COVID-free high five online with a like. Okay, good enough. I'm not going to do too much talking. Actually, I'm going to sit back, and Chris, this is kind of your show. You wanted to drive the theme tonight. We've got two experts in the room. I'm just going to ask questions and learn along with everybody else. So I'll put myself on mute and take it away, Chris.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. I said we're already up to what I can tell so far is about 14 viewers already. So, and it always goes up from there. I'd like to just talk about experiences, what we're having right now. Rob and I have been working on some specific evictions here in Ponoka, and he's got some others on the go where he's built some relationships actually with law enforcement as well. But what I'd like to talk about is so people understand what's going on and some of the difficulties we're having as well as some of the successes. So Rob, let's just talk about, we'll use our our examples just here in Ponoka because we're having some trouble. We have the first scenario where we have someone who's pretty much set up camp in a house that has no right to be there, period. And the scenario behind that is there was a gentleman that was renting the house. This person was a common law to him, previously evicted under a court order, and then was not allowed back at the house. There was some domestic issues as well. She's not supposed to be there, but he has since let her back in, but he had signed a new lease, and through that new lease, it was specific on the lease that this person was not to be in the house. Now, he has since been evicted again, and now he's out, but she has decided she's staying and thinks she has a right to be there. Short of a stick of dynamite, we had to bring in our favorite local eviction specialist, Rob. And how's that going for you, pal? How's that working out?
She's an entertaining lady. Everybody, I'm sure, that logged in on the site there saw the interaction that she had with you.
Mm-hmm.
She's claiming squatters' rights. That doesn't apply in Alberta. I'm not quite sure what the legislation is out in Ontario and Quebec, but here in Alberta, that's just that's a myth. That's an urban myth. There's no such thing. The judges, the arbitrators, they won't even hear it. So once you get a judgment to get somebody else that's claiming squatters' rights, a bailiff will enforce it. It's very straightforward. They don't have any rights to be there. We've got a previous judgment that she's not even supposed to be on the property. So it'll be an open and cut case. It'll just 5 minutes. We've already submitted the evidence of the previous order that she's not to be on the property. She can't be there. So we're doing this one through the RTDRS. And even if we get the worst arbitrator in the world, it's still going to be a 15-minute case. Things have really streamlined with the RTDRS since we had that big meeting several months ago, Chris, and it's been a positive spin for landlords since then. Are
you talking about the meeting with the minister?
Yes. Yeah.
Just so everybody got brought up to speed on that, there was a point where I contacted our local member of MLA, I guess, and I explained some of the difficulties we were having with the way things were going, this no eviction and everything else. So he actually organized a meeting, a conference call, and we got a number of landlords that I knew, invited a whole bunch of people onto the call, and I think it was a very, very good call. What did you think?
It was really productive. I think we really made an impact, and it even carried over to the provincial courts when they reopened. The provincial courts now in Red Deer and Calgary, I'm not sure about Edmonton because I haven't heard, but I assume that it's probably the same, is there's only a 15-minute window. There's no longer a docket that you have to sit and wait. And I'm sure you know what that means, Chris, from being with the RCMP for so long. There's no longer a docket list, first come, first serve. If you have an appointment at 9:45, you're done in 5 minutes. The landlord gets to present their case in 5 minutes. The tenant gets 5 minutes, and the judge makes a rendering a decision on the termination in 5 minutes. It's very straightforward. And then they'll book damages down the road under the same number. And then the landlord doesn't have to file under a separate order paying the fees again. So, I mean, what we did with the residential tenancy dispute carried over into provincial court. And now that I've done probably 20 or 30 here the last couple of months, I'm really seeing the difference where it's no longer 4 hours with the RTDRS to do a trial. It's 15 to 20 minutes because they're under pressure and competition from the provincial courts to do the same thing. So that meeting was a direct result of what's happening now.
Excellent, excellent. So going back to this situation in Ponoka, so are you seeing any challenges going forward with trying to physically get her out versus paper getting her out? Like, what do you see? What's your prediction there?
I think once we get the order, I believe that's for the 23rd or the 22nd, we're going to get the order. It's going to be a 3-day order from the RTDRS. I can almost promise you that. She'll have the weekend to clean out. I'll probably stop up there on the weekend. I'll try and explain it to her. I'll make sure there's an RCMP present so she understands that this is it. I mean, I honestly don't foresee having to get a bailiff for it. I think this is just a timid tenant that thinks her rights are being trampled. I think once the RTDRS explains to her that squatters' rights don't apply, I think it's going to be a straightforward move out. My concern, of course, is damages in the suite, but unfortunately, that's a side effect of it.
Excellent. You also have another one on the go up here, Ponoka, as well. What's a little bit of the story behind that?
The other one is pretty straightforward. I can't comment too much on that one because there's some police involvement in that at this moment. So I can't really divulge some information on that one yet, but I'll know more on that one next week. But I think that one will be a fairly straightforward one as well. I don't think we'll even need to involve bailiffs once we get the order. I think a lot of people are starting to see that the COVID thing is pretty much over with the landlords, and the evictions are coming quick. And the only thing I see is the RTDRS right now is they're doing 3-day evictions, which is amazing, and that's great. But for some reason, the courts have pushed it back to 7 days now instead of 3 days. So I've got a couple hearings next week at provincial court. So I'm gonna use the 3-day. I'm gonna kind of play devil's advocate back and forth, and I'm gonna let the judges know that, well, they're giving 3-day notices in the RTDRS. Why can't we do that in the provincial courts? And I kind of did the same thing back and forth in 6 months ago, where I said to the RTDRS, is we're getting 3 days from the courts. Why can't we get them here?
Right. So
I like it.
The one you're referring to, Rob, where you can't speak to, that's your rural one we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm talking about that. That's good. I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of my questions. I'm talking about the second one you have within the town Ponoka limits there. There's a little bit of history with that one. And actually, I'm just going to lead up to that so everybody understands. First, I want to bring in the value and the power of this page. I was talking to another landlord just this week because I knew the person that was being evicted, and I said, "By the way, you own a number of properties here in Ponoka. Did you get an application from?" And I'll say her name because it doesn't matter. We're on a page. Her name is Lynn Stewart. He says, "As a matter of fact, I did." Why? I said, "Well, you need to know what you're facing. She's facing an eviction." He goes, "Oh," and I said, "First off, this started back several months ago when she was evicted from an apartment building that I was helping. Another fellow and I were managing, and he managed to finally talk her out. And what she did was lied on her application to another landlord here in town who was not a member of this page. And from that, he verified as best he could the information and allowed her to move in. She had the down payment and the deposit, which she wasn't paying back to the other guy that she owed the money to, and got into his place. And once she was in there, then she decides she's not going to pay. So now she's under your microscope, Rob, where you're working on an eviction for us because the second landlord is having trouble with her, needs to get her out. Rob's taken on the case. I've referred that matter down to Rob, knowing this other landlord. Then I've contacted the landlord I know that might get the application, which in fact he did. Here she again has lied on her application. She's living RR3 Rimby and provided a reference of somebody. And he's done the best he can to verify it. What I can't stress enough, folks, is there's 18 of you watching right now, is this. The power of this page. Put these names up and ask people. Had someone just put up, does anybody know Lynn Stewart? The page would have lit up with, no, absolutely not, hard no. You would have got all that information and you would have prevented all this work. The only one benefiting here is Rob making some money doing evictions. Everybody else is losing money on this person. So we need to work together as a team here. So Rob, talk about a little bit about what you got going on. That's the newest one on your list, I would suspect. How's that one going?
Are you talking about the one out by Rimby, or are you talking Ponoka?
No, the one in Ponoka, the Lynn Stewart.
Well, the Ponoka one is fairly straightforward. I think that everybody needs to remember the new COVID rule state, even still, that the tenant and the landlord have to make payment arrangements. And I've yet to see a tenant make payment, and it has to be agreeable payments. So when you're filing, it's got to be non-payment of rent on time. And the third big one that you really have to stress to the RTDRS and the courts is they failed to make payment arrangements under the new COVID regulations. And as soon as I bring that one in, the arbitrator or the judges ask the question, well, did you guys make payment arrangements? And what it does is it gives them that icing on the cake. They're already there, but they want to make sure that the tenant and the landlord had explored all options to make a payment arrangements. And in the one we're talking about, there's been no payment arrangements made. There's late payment of rent and there's non-payment of rent. So the RTDRS they're going to grant me a 3-day eviction almost immediately. It'll be probably a 10-minute hearing. I hopefully we don't have to go as far as the bailiff route, but I think that one's going to be a fairly straightforward one as well. And like you said, Chris, can't stress enough. If you're not sure and there's something eating at you, post it on there. I mean, if they've got lightning references and everything looks amazing, they've got jobs and stuff, but if there's a hesitation, post it on the site. I mean, I believe somebody posted one there a couple of weeks ago, Chris, and I commented immediately, hard no, PM me for details. And I believe you guys caught the tail end of that because somebody cried about somebody posting about it, but at the end of the day, we're covered. We don't have to worry about privacy rules on a private page.
Agreed.
Well, that, and if you're speaking truth from history, how can you ever get in trouble if you're speaking the truth? If it happened and you just go with the facts and you keep the emotion on, like, yeah, this person did $5,000 damage, didn't pay rent for 3 months. It is what it is. That sets precedence in its own, and all of us being landlords, that's a pretty quick and easy decision.
Well, and like you said, MacKenzie, the big thing is too, is we have to go that extra mile to get a judgment. Because once we get a judgment, it's a matter of public record, and we can speak to it all day long.
Right.
Yeah.
Bill, we got to drag you into here. We're kind of like ourselves. What do you got to say? Some experiences, some stuff with this. You've done a lot of evictions, so.
Well, the big thing here is this is where landlords fall down. So many landlords are simply too trusting of these tenants that apply. You got to make sure you do your diligence on these tenants. And I know MacKenzie's got some stuff he's putting together on this, and I put stuff together in the past. And you got to check all the boxes. You got to ask all the right questions. You got to ask them twice and make sure you get the same answer. And you need to verify all these people. One of the biggest things that problem tenants do, they know they're going to get references checked. So they give you fake numbers. So if you're calling their supervisor and you know where they're supposed to be working, call the company directly and ask to speak to that person. You know, bypass that. Just go straight to it. When they give you a landlord reference, type that number into Google and see if you get an old ad that shows up. If there's no ads showing up under that phone number, are they really even a landlord? You know, I know I've got ads that still show up ages later that were theoretically canceled. So just little things like that to help verify things. And then again, the group, you know, when you can do a quick search or try to do a quick search, because there are some hiccups with Facebook. But when you do a quick search on the page or post like some people have done, does anybody know about this person? You'll probably find out pretty quick. What are we up to now? 1,800 people in the group?
Yes.
Yeah, so that, I mean, you've got a lot of landlords and you've had a lot of tenants go through these places. So you've got a pretty good checkpoint there. And then last but not least, something like SingleKey. You know, if you're doing these credit checks, you're going to see judgments on there. You're going to see previous issues. You're going to find out a little bit more sometimes than you want to know, but that's a good thing going into it as well. If you can find out these extra little details about their payment history and other things, it's just going to set you up. So
totally.
Let's talk about that SingleKey and what they can do now. They're doing public record checks. Are they not, MacKenzie?
Oh yeah, they definitely do that, and I think the other biggest advantage is their credit report they pull from Equifax is you get every line item, every transaction, every financial product they've ever had, and there's no other credit checking agency right now on the marketplace that does that level of detail. So, and some people are like, well, you know, I don't need credit because I do good background checks, I do good landlord references. Sure. But I'll tell you what, if I go give an 8 or 10 page document over to Rob here, because I'm now going through an eviction, and Rob can see all this previous history on this tenant, he can see social SIN number, previous addresses, employment. Do you think Rob is going to have a lot better chance of tracking down this person if you're trying to chase for collections or any of that kind of stuff? Would it make your life easier, Rob, if you had a nice detailed report of a person's history?
Oh yeah, MacKenzie, like you were saying, I've even stepped up things recently on my application forms where I've left a space at the bottom of the application forms so I can I do a photocopy of the front and back of their driver's license, just like a bank does.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm meeting the privacy laws, keeping it in a locked file cabinet behind a locked door, I've met that. So if somebody suddenly like gives me a hard time saying, well, you can't do that, I'm like, well, then I'm sorry, I can't rent to you. It's as simple as that. I mean, if they're already red flagging you, well, then move on. You know, like if you got somebody that starts being high maintenance before you've even handed them the keys, why would you want to?
Yeah.
I walked away from somebody yesterday. She showed up to do the move-in, and oh, well, is it okay if I pay you the rent and this, that, and the other thing? I'm like, no. The agreement was you're taking possession of the property. This is what you owe. Well, I can't pay it now. I'm like, well, then I got to find another tenant. She's making all the threats, of course, of suing me. Well, you just forfeited your deposit. I'm looking for somebody else. I'm not letting you move in while you go into debt. I mean, I understand that everybody here, you know, you want to help out people, but at the end of the day, it's a business. You're not going to let a product walk out of your store for nothing.
Right. And from a small landlord perspective, we're probably in the most challenging position. We have a huge capital investment at risk, $60,000-$80,000 in the down payment, plus you should have reserve fund, plus you've got maintenance, and you got to keep this property in market ready condition. Also, you won't get any tenants. And again, you're managing a relationship, a person who has the expectation of wanting to live in a nice, clean home, and that's a challenging balancing act. And there's a lot of risk there if you screw up or you make a mistake. All of a sudden, that's your credit on the line. That's your line of credit you're dipping into to make things happen, and it's just not worth it. So I mean, it's just that perspective is so huge. You know, if we're like a boardwalk or something, there you got their 1,000 or 800 or 400 doors, they can absorb a mistake here and there. They don't care. They got a different process than a small mom and pop landlords like the majority of us on this page. So, and I'm gonna stop talking after one more point here. Diana just threw it up. Thank you, Diana, for mentions. I got her comment on the page here. I'm playing Chris this week. I get to do the Facebook chat management, and she's like, if this person ever reported to the landlord credit bureau. Sorry, I'll get my acronyms right. They have that national legalized database, and it's across Canada, even the U.S. But more importantly, if all the landlords in one area, i.e., us in Alberta, start populating the information in there, you guys will have another powerful tool at your hand to make better informed decisions as landlords. So I can't preach that enough. There's no cost to report it. Get signed up, please. It's landlordcreditbureau.ca. Okay, Chris, back to you.
Landlord Credit Bureau, let's discuss that briefly here. So we get Rob working for you, and our other guys like Donald Gray. I know he's watching here tonight. He's another eviction specialist, and we have Conrad Ratchery, and we have Dean Marsh. You get judgments against these people. The Landlord Credit Bureau, I'm just going to say it again, even though we have the show. Once you have the judgment, you're going to register it with them. And guess where that goes? It goes up there. And guess what? SingleKey does a search. Guess what they're going to find? You're not going to rent to that person. They have a previous judgment out against them. And that person's got to be, they got to be focused on getting their business cleaned up, or they're not going to be living anywhere. So if we keep this page strong and looking after each other, it's all going to tie itself together. And that's important for everybody to realize the strength behind this page, the strength behind numbers. Thoughts, gentlemen? Bill?
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah.
It is so much more expensive to get a bad tenant out than to just stay vacant for another couple of months. You know, take your time. Make sure you've got the right people. And I know a lot of smaller landlords are only a couple months payments away from potentially losing their property. It's even more important for them because that one mistake can cost you your property. So figure out how to get the right people in and learn some steps to do all the screening so you get the proper people in, and you don't have to call Rob and you don't have to call Don. You're just happy with good tenants. So.
Mm-hmm. I know that back to the Landlord Credit Bureau is one of the landlords on our page has a very large number of doors. And after watching the show last week, he's totally convinced on the value behind it. And he has now contacted them directly and is registering all of his previous bad debts. There's nothing for him to lose and everything to gain. And I know that over how many years he's had, 10 plus years of all these bad debts, they mount up after a while, and all of a sudden, even though that's written off, you start getting that money back. That's pure profit. A bad debt, that's something you write off against your profits. You get it back the next year. Guess what? You get $1,000 back or a couple months rent back from somebody. You're now 2 months ahead and in the bank.
Just to share a story with that, I did an eviction. This must have been around 2007. And of course, the judgment went on his credit bureau, and it was roughly 3 years later that the tenant reached out to me by email and said that I illegally put a judgment on his credit, and if I didn't get it taken off, his lawyer would sue me, and it would be horrible for me. And I responded, that's perfect. Have your lawyer get a hold of me. There was actually some additional damages that I didn't claim at the time, and that way at least I'll have a way to get back to you, because now I can go through your lawyer to do another claim on you. And he just disappeared. And it was probably 9 months later, he got back to me and he said, how much do I owe you? I need to get that paid off so I can buy a car. So
I love that motivation.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had a judgment that I got 7 years later for almost $7,800.
Yeah, it's that. There's a lot of power out there, and I wish we had 50 viewers here right now, and people, what we can learn from these little talk shows and the questions that come up is invaluable, and the strength behind the systems that we're helping people employ is amazing. I also hear on the page too, I'll just lead into something else, where people saying, go do a QB check, go pay the $10 to do that, and go find out if they got a judgment against them, search their name. So that's all fine and dandy, but I ask you this is, why would you pay whatever it is, the $10 or whatever it is, when you can go to SingleKey and you can get more information about the person for an extra $10? So you spent $20, you get 4 times the information versus having to find out about a judgment. They go, yeah, he's got a judgment. Okay, don't you want to know more? Okay, well, I better keep digging. We'll make that one call, spend 20 instead of 10, and you'll get 4 times the information. So again, I appreciate that people are giving people direction, go down and do a search at the courthouse, but we're trying to put systems in place that are all going to help all of you do a more thorough job. And right now, SingleKey's been a lifesaver for some of our landlords, and we've got some great feedback about it. So, MacKenzie, what have you got to say about all that?
I'm nodding, and I really like it. I mean, we're not going to be perfect. There's going to be problems. There'll be, unfortunately, some probably problem tenants will slip through the cracks. But that's why we've got folks like the Rob Bowes, the Don Grays up in Edmonton, Dean Marsh's in Calgary here, and you need to know the eviction process, and there's a right way of doing it, and there's ways to mitigate. I mean, that's probably the most challenging thing about this business is the unknown, especially with managing tough tenants. So there's systems in place to mitigate all this kind of stuff, and that will probably avoid 9% of the issues. And if you get caught with a bad one, we've got the right folks in place that know the expertise that can get you through and lead you the right way. And that's kind of the power of this community. So I've thrown 2 questions on. I was kind of picking through this afternoon on the group. Do you guys want to tackle one of them and get everyone's feedback on it?
Absolutely. Let's put them up. I see what you've got going on there. So yeah, that'd be a great thing.
Fantastic. Okay. So looking for a recommendation. We might already know the answer to this. We have a judgment against Lee McGill from Sylvan Lake, Alberta, the amount of $9,284 and change for outstanding rent and utilities. Any recommendations on who to use for collections in the central Alberta area? That came from Cassie.
Rob.
It's personal preference. I mean, I've been experimenting with a few collection agencies recently, and I can't give you a definitive answer because I haven't. I used to use Abel Apton, but they went bankrupt just before the COVID thing. So I've switched to one agency out of Calgary and another one out of Edmonton, and I'm just in the process to see what kind of results they're producing. So I can't really give a positive feedback on either of them yet.
Okay.
One judgment was for $6,000, the other one was for $12,500. So I've got so many more judgments coming up over the next couple of months from this COVID experience. I'm probably going to have over $150,000 to $200,000 in judgments over the next couple of months. These are afterwards. Like, this is for the damages. So yeah. I think it'll probably be January, February before I see any definitive results from a collection agency. Yeah,
because again, it could be months to years, right? Depending on when they.
100%. I mean, like I said in that one brief comment, I had Abel Apton collected $7,800 after 7 years.
Yeah,
I think the way to look at this is your first step and easiest step and free step is to register this with the Landlord Credit Bureau.
100%.
and then it's there, then you can move forward to find out the rest. The old can't get blood out of a stone certainly does exist. However, if you don't put it there, the person goes to buy a house or something, you've lost your chance.
Yep.
That all important F-150 or pickup truck in Alberta, they need them, right? So if they're looking for that auto loan and you throw it on that landlord credit bureau, and I believe if you want, there's and I can't remember, Zach mentioned this, but it's like a $40 some nominal charge. They'll go after it for 3 years, up to 3 years, trying to chase it down for you. I don't know, like I know that part of the collection game from what Zach told us, but maybe Rob, from your experience, when you've gone through and done collections, like what's the typical transaction? Do they, if it's $5,000 outstanding, do they take 40% and then you get 60%, or how does that kind of number work for collection?
Well, it all depends on, I mean, the more doors you have and the more business you get, you can negotiate a price. I've got a 34% with the one out of Calgary and 36% out of the one out of Edmonton. If they can collect it in the first 90 days, they both kick off 5%, but anything beyond 90 days starts to get a lot of legwork for them. I mean, a lot of landlords, they look at, oh my God, that's almost 40%, but they could be spending hundreds of hours chasing these people down, not to mention tracking them by computer, registering the judgments. It's a lot of work. And like Chris said, if you ever get money from them, it's 100% profit because you've already used it as a write-off.
Yeah, it's a write-off.
Anything you get is a write-off.
Get any money, right? So,
exactly. And the big thing that everybody keeps stressing here in these meetings is accountability. I mean, I know how it feels to get burned. Chris, MacKenzie, everybody here knows how to get it burned. I would not wish that upon any landlord. So if I've got to spend a couple hours ensuring that people know about this so they don't get burned, it's accountability, like hold these people accountable.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not sure, I'm going to ask this question. When you go with the collections and like these agencies that you talked about, Rob, do they register these amounts owing to an Equifax or a credit bureau like TransUnion? Do you know if they do that?
100%. They register them with all of them.
Okay.
They'll register it with anybody that'll take it. And like you said, Chris, they go to buy a house, they go to buy a car, it pops up, and they won't lend them the money to do it. They won't even lend them the money at a high risk. They have to pay off that debt before they can do it. I had a car company 6 months ago that they were so desperate to sell this truck to this individual, and it was an $80,000 truck. The dealership, they absorbed the $3,200 into the car payments, and they paid off the debt so they could give it to the client.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
Do you
sounds
remember those guys in Central Alberta here? You'll remember a year ago or two where Mitsubishi was advertising, we'll lend you up to, I don't know, $10,000 or $15,000 on top of what you're borrowing, pay off those bills. Well, that's what these car companies do. Some of them is they get through their different credit lenders and they'll advance the other the buyer extra money on top of their car. So they're really upside down in their car loan because now they're incorporating debt. They'll pay off all that other debt because that person needs that car. So what do I care as a landlord? Have that car go upside down. I don't care as long as I got my money now, and good riddance. Good riddance. Like those people want to do those programs and they want to take the hit. But I'll tell you something, that person's probably paying 22, 23, 24% interest. So don't think your car loan you're getting for 6% for an extra 10 grand's happening. You already have bad credit going. They have bad credit going in. They're paying for it, and it's going to take them a while to earn that credit back. But you know what? Get these things registered, people, because somebody's going to pay you off because that car dealership wants to make that sale.
Yeah, I'll leave this question up. I don't know anyone specifically, but do you guys, maybe Bill Beekle, you might know, do you know anyone in Southern Alberta, Lethbridge area for collections?
No. Sorry.
For collections, I would tell them to look at Calgary.
Calgary? Okay.
Yeah.
So a thought here as I'm thinking through, so let's talk about two different dollar amounts, right? I think once we get over that 5, 6, 7,000 and higher dollar amount, going after like a collection agency that does take the 35 or 40%, because they're going to be pretty motivated to collect that larger sum of money, is probably the best way to go. Like what Rob was saying. I think on the flip side, if maybe you've got a small judgment because you've gone to RTDRS and you've got a quick eviction and it's like, $800 or maybe $1,200, maybe only that $40 nominal fee from Landlord Credit Bureau, and it takes you 15 minutes to plug it in the computer, might be the best bet and see what happens. Because I don't think maybe Rob, again, I'm going to lean back on you here. Do you know if these collection agencies have at least a minimum that they want to go after, or do they accept all kind of amounts?
Oh, they'll accept anything with a judgment. If it's a $250 amount, they'll take it. At the end of the day, they're talking about volume.
Okay, good to know that.
They got to keep their phone operators busy, so it's volume. How many calls they can make, how many letters they can send out in a day, how many credit bureaus they can report things to. It's about volume.
Okay. Here's a question, and if you're trying to play devil's advocate, could I go and run it through both? Could I give it to a collection agency, here in Alberta, and then also throw it on the Landlord Credit Bureau and let them hit the collection button there? Or can I spool it out to two different collection agencies, or is that kind of maybe like a no-no?
That's actually a really good question. I'll look into that. I've never thought about doing it, but I'll next time I talk to the guys in Calgary, Edmonton, I'll ask them that. I'm assuming it wouldn't be viewed as very nice, but then you might get two collection agencies taking two big chunks out of your money in the end too.
Yeah. I wonder how that worked. Yeah, if we get some solid information, that'd be a good kind of what if question. So yeah. We'll leave that one at that one. Okay. I can segue to another question, gentlemen, if you'd like.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, let's do that then. Is this the right one? Okay, here it is. This one comes from Christina. I'm working on the statement of account for security deposit for the tenant that was just evicted. Can someone confirm if I can deduct from the following? Unpaid rent and utilities, garbage removal. If so, what's a reasonable amount per hour? Charging for locks, removing a lock that they put on the gate. RTDRS claim fee. And how do I go about claiming for the bailiff fee? That came from Christina. Gentlemen, let's give it to you, Bill. You've been a little bit quiet, and then I'll let Rob fill in as well.
Where to start?
I can leave it up there if you want.
Basically, you can itemize all the issues you got there. The only one that's going to be a problem is changing the locks. You won't be able to claim that, and you won't be able to claim the bailiff fee. But the rest, if you itemize it all out, you should be able to do it fine. As for charging per hour, what's the going rate for that type of labor? Whether it's $30 or $35 or $25 an hour, that's what you get to charge. So,
okay,
that's the short answer. Rob, your feedback?
Well, I recently bumped the rate up to 35 from 25, like you were doing there, Bill. And I haven't even had a judge or a arbitrator even balk at it. So I mean, I'm up to 35 now, and we were charging years ago, Bill. I think inflation says we can go to 35 now with kind of the shit that we're putting up with. As far as the other charges go, I actually did charge the bailiff fee, and I'll run that in provincial court. I'll forward it to you, Bill, so you've got a precedent to sit on that one for you. Awesome. So it's like anything else. If I always try and do it. Right now, I've got a case going. I think it's November 17th, and I'm claiming not only the bailiff fees, which I'm going to get because I have a precedent to it, but I'm going to attempt for about the 12th time to have the judge hear whether or not I can add the collection fees in there.
Okay.
Nice.
Me and another lawyer, Charlie, she's a great lawyer out of Red Deer here. We've been working on it for the last 2-3 years, and we think we've got a judge 17th. And what we're doing is we're going to say, if they haven't paid us within 90 days, can we make it in the order that we can include the costs, the 35 to 40% as an additional plus interest? And me and her have been working on this for a couple of years. If we get it, we've set a precedent for all other judges and all arbitrators. I mean, even the arbitrators, I've had them argue things saying, oh, well, you can't do that. I use the provincial court and the RTDRS against each other. If I get a judgment in one, I'll cross it over to the other, vice versa. Not so much the RTDRS to the provincial judge, but definitely when a provincial judge makes a decision, I'll bring it into an RTDRS and I'll quote it and I'll include it as evidence. They don't like doing it, but they don't have a choice because the last thing they want to do is a
You're cutting it out, but I like what you're setting precedence with a provincial level case. Yeah. It has a result, and you bring that back into your RTDRS here, and the guy pretty much goes, "Yeah, I'll accept that."
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, when you're doing a statement of account, list it all out. The worst thing they can do is take you back into a courtroom, and then you can make your argument.
Yeah. The thing to remember too is a lot of people don't realize the RTDRS are arbitrators. They're not judges. They're not even lawyers. There is on occasion there is a lawyer sitting, but when you bring case law into a case with them, they're obligated to follow it, because and you make yourself look good, and you're well researched. Now, the reason Rob has so much success with this stuff is years of practice and research and being well read, and you know, getting spanked probably a few times, Rob. And yeah, and from those you learn, and you step forward, you step up, you keep moving forward, and all of a sudden now they may try to wield a big stick, but when you say no, this is how it is, and this is research I've done, they're kind of having to follow something. When a judge says, no, this is the way it is, they can't go against the rule of law. They don't always apply the rule of law in how they do it, but once you show them the law, they have to follow it.
And it's like anything else, as long as you're being reasonable. We all know with the RTDRS, they're allowing email and social media to serve documents now, and they've made it right within the rules and the COVID rules, the RTDRS. And I recently pulled it in with Judge Yates about 3 weeks ago, where I said, can I get substitutional service through email? And he started laughing at me, and he says, you know better than to ask me that. And I says, oh, well, they're starting to do it with the RTDRS, and they're having a lot of success. And so I gave him a copy of the RTDRS, and of course, he took a 10-minute brief recess, came back, and said, you know, I'm going to allow this. I'm going to work this into the order. And he set a precedent. So now, and what he did was, the tenant's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, I understand that you're a hard person to get a hold of. I need your email address. And the tenant's like, no. And the judge is like, no, you're not leaving here until I get your email address, and we're going to register it on the order. And of course, I sat there with the dumbest look on my face, trying not to smile, because Yates watches you out of the corner of his eye. And he worked it into the order. So now I've got a concrete order written on a provincial judgment that says, if you ask for substitutional service by email, if you've got the tenant right there, boom, you don't have to track them down at all anymore. You just keep sending stuff to them.
Oh, that's interesting.
They can send you to all the spam they want, and it doesn't matter. It's on them now.
100%. They have to print it out. You could send color copies rather than struggling with paper copies or anything now.
That's cool. I've got Donald Gray. He's been busy on the chat answering questions, so let's give him a little bit of a highlight here. So Donald threw this one out here, and he raises a really good point here, talking about collection agencies. He says all of them can work in all areas. I guess most of it is technically online over the phone, really, anyways. So there you go, to the gal who was asking about the Lethbridge and Southern Alberta area. And then the next thing here, Don also mentioned, and we showed this kind of before, he had no problem charging for locks as well. And then Christina, that is who I got the question from. She's on live. So hey, Christina, thanks for joining us. Give a thumbs up, say hi there. She just commented here. She said the locks were changed by the tenant, which was one of the reasons for eviction, and the keys were never returned. So I thought I could add them to the security deposit deductions. I think absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, you'd actually be able to add locksmith charges for that and everything. So
yep, installation and the locks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Save yourself some grief. Go get the smart locks. It's a lot. You know what? You can hire all these people and try to collect. Go get a smart lock and take the extra minute or two just to do the key yourself. You know what? You're all shaking your heads. I think you're agreeing with me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I wrote a detailed post. It's lost in the abyss of Facebook somewhere now, back in, I think it was May or something, and it was probably like 2 pages long. But there's a ton of good locks out there. Weiser's a pretty popular one. I see a lot of landlords speak highly of. I use Schlage, just the brand I've been using since, and I have deadbolts, keypads, Schlage connects on 7 different doors across my properties. Back and front door, a garage. I've never had any problems. They've operated down to -35. Here's the caveat: is these units come in two pieces. All the guts and the batteries have to be on the insulated side inside the house, and that's why they can run it really any temperature, because the buttons, all that stuff, will work wherever. I have them in my garage where it's not insulated, and it did not work at -35. But I don't think any good pair of AA or AAA batteries out there will run when they're down that cold. It's not really the equipment, it's the battery power. The batteries can't produce power at that cold of temperature. So you're not gonna have any luck with any lock.
Something I found out, I was helping a lady with a different property here in Ponoka. Let's say for some reason the key, you can't get the key, you can't get it you can't get the smart lock thing to work. Nothing is working. Something's gone foul inside it. I found out this one happened to be a Wiser lock. I pulled the lock off. I went down to the home hardware here, to the back counter, and my good little friend Gary there, he says, just give it to me. And he pulls it out, takes it apart, pulls out this contraption, pops it on the lock, gives it a turn, sticks a key in it, turns it, goes, here, it's fixed. Now you can take your little thing, you stick it in, you got a key, and it's all done. There's even another step to the whole thing where you can pull the whole lock off, give it to any of these companies that sell it. They have a master cylinder thing that they can pop the whole thing on and fix it in 10 seconds. It's a 10-second fix, and they usually don't, he didn't charge me because it's local, but any of these places, they look after you if they're selling that product. So I didn't know that.
It sounds like we should get some good YouTube videos on some different lock types, how to program them. I think the people would appreciate that. This highlights what we're moving to in the future. We're putting some really cool stuff together. We're going to have a way to put categories and track all this information for you guys. So again, stay tuned, because there's a wealth of information. And only the tough thing about Facebook is once it's a week, 10 days old, it kind of disappears into that Facebook abyss, and no one can ever find that post again that had really valuable information. Because I know, Rob, you've provided tons of value on a lot of posts, and I go back and I search, and it's just like finding a needle in a haystack. But hey, we're getting some questions going live right now off of the old switchboard here. So Bill, how about you take this one? Can you do cleaning yourself and repairs yourself? Let me try them again. Can you do cleaning and repairs yourself and bill for your own time? Or do you have to hire a company in order to deduct from the security deposit?
From my experience, you can do it yourself, but you have to prove that you're charging the right rates. You can't just randomly pick numbers. If you can't charge professional painting charges if you're doing the painting, for instance.
Okay, cool. And I heard, Rob, you just kind of confirmed the going rate for some of this kind of generic labor is kind of at that $35 mark. So it's probably not a bad place to start at.
No, and I could take it one step further with Bill there. If you've got like just a little painting and you're charging $35 an hour, that's fine. But if you're really concerned and you have a home that has like $4,000 or $5,000, go get 2 quotes for $5,000 from professional painters. And then when you go in front of a judge or an arbitrator, you've got those quotes to go on and say, well, I actually did it for $3,500. And you look like a saint because you got 2 quotes for a professional painter. You did yourself for $3,500. The judge and the arbitrator is not even going to balk for a second to give you that funding. Same thing with flooring or anything like that. Get the professionals. You know, they're there, they'll come out, do a free quote, and you got that as evidence. Oh, well, I got this. I just couldn't afford to spend $5,500, so I took 2 weekends off in a row and did it myself.
That's awesome. I love it. You set the bar higher, then you come in and say, well, you know, I did it for $4,000.
Well, and I really press the point home. The word, I mean, Chris knows this word, reasonable. It's in criminal law. It's in civil law. So as long as you're being reasonable, you're always going to get the respect of a judge or an arbitrator. If you're being unreasonable, you're gonna get slapped on paper. Don't be unreasonable. You got a 10-year-old fridge and the tenants beat the crap out of it, and you know you said, "Oh, it cost me $1,100 to replace this fridge." Looks like, you know, in its best day it was worth $600. The judge isn't going to appreciate that. Neither will the arbitrator. If you took 2 minutes out and said, "Hey, it was a 10-year-old fridge. It cost me $1,100." I think, and you say in front of an arbitrator, you show on paper $1,100 in the security deposit. But even before you finish giving evidence, you say, I'd be happy with $500, as I probably only had 5 or 6 years more left in that fridge. And I believe that. Finish with that word. You finish with that word. I mean, Chris has probably heard that word a million times from Crown prosecutors when they're trying to prosecute someone. I believe this would be reasonable. And the judge loves that word. If you become unreasonable, he's not going to give you anything, and he's going to question everything on that list that you're just trying to be money hungry.
Yeah, and you hear this time and time again where landlords want to nickel and dime away that security deposit. You know what? Expect a fight. If you're a nickel and dimer, expect a fight, and deservedly so. You go in and make yourself look good, and you make yourself look reasonable. You get 2 quotes that come out to, you know, $500-600 worth of work, and you do it for $375 or $400. Well, you've paid yourself, and you've recovered your material costs, and you look reasonable.
100%.
And you know what? You need, I'm going to tell you something. There's more to it than that. You need to invest in your property, and you do that by doing some work yourself. You understand what's down. You did the work. You understand how it's put down, and you understand what's behind the wall or behind the floor or behind the fridge. That's important. You know that the inner workings of something, just to hire somebody. That's fine if you're a big shot, big organization with hundreds of doors. When you're the mom and pops, you need to be hands-on, because you need to understand why the flooring goes in the way it does, why the paint goes on the way it does, why you cut into a wall when you paint with the brush a certain way. You need to understand that stuff. It sounds silly, but it's important you know how to, when somebody's talking to you, you're not taken for a walk somewhere because you're getting a poor quote. You need to understand your business from the bottom up.
Yeah. And something I've been recently telling landlords a lot, when you're doing a move-out report and you're taking photographs of things, get yourself a square, whether it be a 12-inch by 6-inch or a 2-foot by 12-inch. So when you're taking pictures of these damages, you show perspective, just like you would on a CSI episode. That way a judge can see that this is a 3-inch by 2-inch hole by what he sees on that level, or the dent in the door, or the big scratch on the carpet, or the big stain. Put that thing down, take a picture of it. Put it up against the wall, take a picture of it. That way you're not struggling to explain, because it's like anything else, Chris. I mean, I'm looking at that picture behind you. I couldn't tell if that thing's 4 feet wide or 6 feet wide, but if I put a level on the wall behind it, it's going to give me an actual depiction of how large and how severe the damages were.
Totally. Yeah, it's tough to keep context of what a picture is, whether you're talking like a 2-inch hole or a dinner plate size hole.
Exactly.
Right? So, I want to riff on one thing what Chris said there about trying to know what trades are. I don't know a lot of trades, but what I've found a technique that works really well is you get multiple quotes and you talk to multiple experts in that industry. So these painters, for example, talk to 3 or 4. You'll see commonalities in the conversation, and you'll start to pick out who knows what they're talking about. And if 3 painters all say this is the one technique to do this kind of job, then you're probably looking at the right information as opposed to someone telling you something else in left field. So on that, we got a question in from Crystal. I want to get this one up for you guys. Okay, so Crystal says, I'm just going to kind of skip to the part here. She's looking for some guidance on a tenant eviction. I've been very fortunate. I haven't had to evict anyone as of yet. I want to make sure I follow all the appropriate steps, but I'm not 100% sure on what those steps are. Backstory, my new tenant signed a 1-year lease in July 1st. She paid the first couple of months, but now none is as of October 1st. I tried talking with her, and she's lying to me after some back and forth. That's all I got. Weird.
I might be able to pick up the rest for you here, MacKenzie.
Yeah, I don't have the rest of it for some reason.
Where did you leave off at? Sorry?
Back and forth.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, okay. And after some back and forth over the past few days and nothing, I served her with a 14-day eviction notice today. And what other steps do I take? Should I immediately also file with the RTDRS or through a court system? What are my smartest next moves? Rob.
Well, I think we need a little more information on it. I always tell my clients this when they come to see me. When you're going for an eviction, it's like asking for a student loan. If you want $20,000, you ask for $40,000. When you're trying to evict a tenant, you find as much as possible. You do your 24-hour inspection. You inspect the yard. You inspect the home. Are they changing the filter in the furnace? Have they got the utilities hooked up in their name? Do they have pets? Do they have additional tenants? And you list the worst one first and the least amount. So when the judge looks like, well, they're only a month behind. Yeah, but they've got a dog and they didn't get permission, and the house looks horrendous and they haven't cleaned it and the yard's growth outstanding. Now suddenly that rent not being paid plus 6 or 7 other little things carries a lot more weight. You're asking for $40,000 to get that $20,000 student loan. So a judge, they'll list on the, I do that almost every eviction. Make sure you do a 24-hour inspection. The chances are if they're not paying rent, there's other things going on as well. So, I mean, I even had a photograph, they could pay rent, but they got a brand new 70-inch TV. The judge was not happy about that. He says, you can afford to buy a 70-inch screen. I even took a picture of the box outside of the brand new TV and when it was purchased because the receipt was still on the box. So they basically used their
That's
rent
awesome.
money to buy a TV, and then they wanted sympathy, and they didn't get any. And again, like you always say, Chris, do your investigating, sniff around, look hard, take photographs, and all that helps because it's so much more additional information when you go to it. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say to them is they haven't paid October rent. Do a 24-hour inspection. Find out if there's anything else to be concerned about, and make sure that's all listed on your RTDRS form.
Yeah, love it.
So Crystal, I guess in short there, if they're not paying, the first thing you do, you should be serving, what are we at, 7th of October? Yeah, you should be serving a 14-day eviction notice so they know you're serious. Get that done tomorrow. And you also serve a 24-hour inspection. You need to go in and check your place and see what's going on in there. And when you find some other issues, then you start listing those as part of your filings to the RTDRS. You may want to get these people out right away. The biggest thing is if she's there when you go in, you're able to confront her directly and say, when are you paying and what's your plan? She may say, I don't know what's going to say. They may say, I don't have one, or they may say, I'll pay you by this day. That's fine. You can accept the money, and if they pay you within the 14-day eviction period, well, you're fine. But be prepared next month to hit them with another one right away again, because now you're working into continuously late payments, which is another reason to evict somebody. Bill, what do you got for that?
Well, just like you said there, the only thing to add to that is if you're having this conversation when you're doing the inspection, follow it up with a letter or an email or both afterwards. So you've got some documentation saying, this is what we talked about, this is what you said you were going to do. And then you've got this stack of evidence later when they don't do it that just makes you look that much better when you're in front of the judge or the hearing officer. It's like, here's what they said they were going to do. Here's what we talked about. We had the verbal conversation. Here's the record. I sent it off to them. I texted to make sure they got it. They responded that they got it and they agreed with everything, and we still couldn't do it. So.
Oh, I just, Nicole has added in here. It says, because this lady's new, please explain the 16-day period for it. And thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
It has to be 14 clear days. So the day you serve it and the day they're to be out don't count. There has to be that 14 days. So it's a total of 16 days. So make sure there's 14 days. So for example, if you serve it on the 10th of the month, their eviction day is the 26th of the month. Did I get the math right? Yeah, that's 16 days. So 14 clear days, very important that you all know that. Otherwise, you're hooped, you're starting over again. They don't, it's not a proper eviction notice.
I want to throw this back to Bill, because I know, Bill, you actually plays a little bit differently depending if you already have a stack of evidence as opposed to building up your evidence. So if you've got someone who's delinquent, they're late, and you've been dealing with this problem for a few months in a row, and you've been doing good documentation, would you serve a 14-day notice, or would you do something differently?
No, 14-day eviction is easy to get out of because they simply have to pay and it typically goes away. If you charge them with basically it's a breach of the payment terms is what you want to move into versus a 14-day eviction notice for non-payment. Non-payment is solved by simply paying. So if you do it multiple times, they can just keep on paying. And some people believe that's how the system works. So they'll not pay or they'll pay late. And it's like, well, here's the money, go away. Next month, same thing. Here's the money, go away. Here's the late money again, go away. Well, usually around that second or third time, you can turn it back into breach of the payment terms. And now it's a different rule. Keep going, Kat. Get that tail out of it. Now it's different rules. So even if they pay, they've still breached the payment terms and they have to leave.
Yeah.
Right?
So that allows you to still collect your rent, which is a good thing, but your eviction notice still stands. So you're not hooped anymore because they paid you, correct?
Yep. I had a case in a provincial court a couple Christmases ago where the girl actually paid me in the courtroom. So I always bring a receipt book with me in the courtroom, and the judge turns to me and smiles and says, so part 2 of your eviction was for non-payment of rent on time. And I said, yes. He says, how many times has she not paid her rent on time? And I'm like, 4 times. And he says, so would you still like to proceed with an eviction? I said, yes, I would. And the girl's like, what? She went panicked. What do you mean? And I said, well, I'm going to be reasonable. She's paid up until the end of the month. I would like the termination to be at noon, last day of the month. And the judge is like, that seems reasonable. He ordered the girl standing there going, well, what do you mean? I have to be out a month then? I paid my rent. And he's like, no. Part of his application said non-payment of rent on time, and he included a lot of evidence. So like you were saying, Bill, if you only put that non-payment of rent and they pay the rent, you're SOL going into a hearing or a courtroom. You have to list as much as possible because
just stack as much stuff as you possibly can on there in case they do get off on one or two of the issues.
Mac, you want to bring up that last question because we're right at the hour mark here. So.
Oh, I know you're a stickler for time there, Chris. I already have on the screen for you, buddy. So this came from Bonnie Jean. Right on, Bonnie Jean. Thanks for throwing the question here. I think you might have got the last say of the night. Once you have a judgment from the Queen's Bench and the ex-tenant doesn't pay according to the order, I'm taking them back to the court for contempt of order, for contempt of court. What should I expect from the judge?
That's an interesting one.
On the bottom screen.
I could tackle this one because it's one that I've been seeing a little bit of. I cannot stress enough not to use Court of Queen's Bench. Court of Queen's Bench is very expensive, very meticulous. It's long and drawn out. If this is just for a couple, well, basically, if it's under $50,000, never file in a QB. File in provincial court. It's cheaper, it's easier, and the judge will help you. And he'll help the tenant. You don't need a lawyer to file in provincial court. If you file in QB, it's a $2,500 retainer minimum from a lawyer. There is, I mean, if you've got somebody that's done $80,000, $90,000 to your home, you're going to get forwarded to the QB no matter what, because they can't deal with anything over, I think it's $49,999. Correct, Chris?
Yes.
So, I mean, if she's going back to QB, I don't know if she has a lawyer or if she's doing it herself. You can do self-representation in QB, but it's rare that the judge will give you contempt. He's probably just going to tell you to turn it over to a collection agency because you got a judgment for rent. You need to pursue collection. Just because he doesn't pay, contempt of court is a tough one. You see that in divorce court a lot where they'll try and contempt, and very rarely will a judge enforce it, and that's for hundreds of thousands of dollars owing.
Yeah, Bonnie says she's representing herself, which is my understanding. You can't self-rep in QB. You have to hire a lawyer.
No, that's not true, Chris. I've got a QB action coming up, and with my self-representation, I wouldn't be able to help anybody in QB. You'd have to be if you need help, you have to have a full-fledged lawyer. And QB judges do not like self-representation if you don't know what you're doing. I've seen QB cases get thrown out by someone with 3 inches of paperwork, thought they did it right, and the judge is like, meh, you didn't cross your T's over here, it's out of here. Whereas a lawyer would never do that. A lawyer makes sure that thing is airtight. Whereas a provincial judge will, if he sees a T not crossed or an address not correct, he'll make the amendment, and he'll give the opportunity to say why they don't think the amendment should go ahead. But very rarely will a judge not make an amendment in a provincial court. It's more of a relaxed atmosphere. It's to help people come to a mediation on what the judgment should be.
So with the QB, wasn't it, there was something ages ago about if you owned your properties underneath a company, then you had to be represented by a lawyer. If you owned it personally, then I think you could self-represent.
I can
actually. Oh, good. You go ahead, MacKenzie, because I can. Well, actually, you and I both can speak to this because there's.
We've
go ahead.
Recently had some experience. I mean, so correct me if I'm wrong, because I am the least legalized person in this esteemed group. If it's a corporation, by law, a corporation has to be represented by legal counsel. You cannot self-represent. So if you've got properties in a corporation for holding, you need legal representation. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. You have to, and from our thing going on right now with that, you must, if you're a corporation, must be represented by counsel. A corporation has, how is it told to me by the lawyer?
So a corporation's like it's an entity on its own, but it's stupid. It's like a dumb, lack of better terms, dumb child, a dumb person, individual.
That's how it was described, a dumb child. Yes.
Okay, let's call it dumb person, but it needs to be guided by legal counsel. So it can't self-represent.
Yeah.
I'm actually dealing with 2 cases like that. One in RTDRS, and my most recent one with the Leedale Hutterite colony out west of Red Deer. Both of them are a corporation. One's a numbered company, the other one's a corporation. In a provincial court, they can hire me as an agent to represent them. But you're 100% right, MacKenzie. It's a nightmare to try and represent a numbered company without at least an agent in provincial court. And if it does go to QB, you're right. You cannot self-represent in QB if it's a corporation or a numbered company. So the big thing is to remember, if you've got a numbered company and you're filing something, make sure you file your incorporation pages with it, because if you speak to the matter, you better be the one on the corporation papers, and your agent or lawyer needs that in order to file it properly.
Yeah, good points.
Well, some great lawyer talk stuff tonight. I remember an old timer one time. I had a little discussion about something. He wasn't happy, and he was a Dutchman, and his answer to me was, "This is lawyer talk. It's all lawyer talk." I thought that was funny. I've always remembered that, lawyer talk.
Well, I'm looking forward, Chris, to sharing what's going on at Media, because I'll just give a highlight really quickly. They had a huge bust. I've told Chris about this in the past. This will be the third eviction I've done for these people out west. You probably read about it in the news. The first one was about 2.5 years ago. Huge drug bust, huge chop shop. It was out by just out by Rocky. They moved out by Delburn. I evicted them from that location about 1.5 years ago, and now they're renting a property out at Leedale, and it was a big bust with a chop shop on Saturday, and I'm helping the Leedale colony do it. And these people literally saw my name, and they haven't been back for 2 days. They saw my name on the application. I think they know the writing on the wall now. And again, like you said, is make sure you're cooperating with law enforcement. They do appreciate it under these circumstances. But I'll update that more as we go. And probably in the next 24 to 48 hours, we're going to post a lot of pictures, information, aliases, and such. That's why it's so important. Physically look at the ID. This is the third time these people have done this. And each time she just changes her name on the application, provides false information. And all they would have had to do is take a photocopy of her driver's license and ask the questions on the site, run it through SingleKey, and it all would have come up.
Yeah, totally. And one point I'll add here quickly. I know we're a little bit overtime right now, Chris, but I like the point you made there, Rob. I'm going to try to give an analogy, talking about the QB bench, where it's only up to $50,000, right? No, it's higher than $50,000.
Provincial is up to $50,000. QB is over $50,000.
Right. So I would take the QB as like the majors or the pro level, and then you're trying to take a minor hockey player into that court system when it doesn't really make a lot of sense. There's other systems that are more in tune for the different types of judgments out there or the types of damages. So,
well, and the QB judges don't like tenancy matters at all.
Because there's already a few other places to have this conversation, and probably, and yeah. Cool. Awesome. Another question came in at 8:06. Can we let them slide there, Chris?
Absolutely. Let's do it. I just want to try to keep everybody's attention span. That's why we try to keep it around an hour. Let's slide this last one in.
We got 28 people watching, so I think we're doing okay. Okay, this came in from Ria. Hey, Ria. Hi, guys. I just experienced this recently on my January 22nd, 2020 QB hearing. I got adjourned Sunny die. Okay, I didn't know what that means. So good. Rob, clarify that for us. Because it applied under the corp, but if the case is applied under a person and person only, then can I represent myself?
I'm a little confused on this one. I'm not quite sure what she's asking. Or he or she.
I don't know. What's the legal term, sunny die?
Well, it's something you'll never see in a provincial court. A QB, I'd have to see the actual order to see how they've applied something. There's 50 different reasons they could have done that. I'd have to get more information. I mean, if this user wants to send me the order, I can probably look at it tomorrow, get a little more detail and a better response. Right now, with just that little tiny bit of information, it's tough to give a response.
Oh, okay. It sounds like that might be an opportunity to reach out to Rob and have that conversation.
I'll be happy to point him in the right direction on that one.
Oh, hold on. She's not asking, she's stating. Well, maybe I misread. Oh, yeah, she's got a follow-up question here too. So, sorry, I'm clicking in two different places. We got back on the listen from the hearing in a week, and this time we are represented by a lawyer. Okay.
Okay, so sine die means, I just checked it up because all the legal Latin terms here. It says it's a reference to a business or proceedings that have been adjourned with no appointed date for resumption. So basically they adjourn the matter so she can get things fixed up, and then her lawyer or whatever can make an application to bring the matter back into court. But it has not been, it's not been thrown out by the court in simple terms.
It's just been put on hold is basically the best way to put it. But I didn't understand the reasons why they put it on hold. That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Reading between the lines there, I think whatever the application was just to the person. It should have been to the corporation, and I think they had to just refile some of it and fix it up.
Oh, she got told to refile it and position it correctly. Yeah.
And you see, that's the big plus about a provincial court is a judge can make those amendments right there and then. It's not so strict in a provincial court, and it's so much more expensive to do the Court of Queens. It takes way longer to get a judgment. It's harder to it's not necessary for a termination of a lease to go through the Court of Queens. Unfortunately, a lot of the lawyers, they love to go to Court of Queens because they make a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's just stating what she did and how that worked out for her. So that's good.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
Yeah, she
We should probably.
well, that's exact. Sorry, my wordings were confusing, she says.
Oh, no, all good. All good.
No,
Yeah.
it's not you. It's us. It's
Our explanations were confusing. So there you go.
It's the four not so wise men. So
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up on that point. Gentlemen, thank you guys so much for joining us. Bill, as always, your pleasure to be with us. Rob, thank you for giving some time tonight. We really appreciate it. I'll give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Our main sponsor right now is Greenleaf Property Management here in Calgary. They do some monthly market updates. We got a video coming up here for October pretty soon. If you guys got property management related questions, they are on the page. Tag Brett Turner in it. They can definitely answer some questions and get some great conversations going. On that note, we're on the only talk show for Alberta Landlords, the Alberta Landlord Shoptalk show. Gentlemen, thank you for being a part of it tonight. Let's all have a good night. Take care.
Take care, guys.
Take care.